97.3 Citi FM. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Eyewitness News, coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. My name is Sammy Wiafe, and tonight I'm here with
Ejubi Wiafe Akinting.
Coming up in the next 1 hour, 30 minutes.
FM stations that were issued revocation notices. Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited operating in Takrady. Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited operating in Accra. Asasi Broadcasting Company Limited in Accra on 99.5 FM.
National Communications Authority shut down 64 radio stations for various breaches, but Diamond 93.7 FM in Tamale, in the Upper West region, Western Link 88.1 FM in Lora, in the Upper East region, Source 100.1 FM in Boko, and Mike 105.3 FM in Navrongo. In the Northeast region, hear us on Scrub 101.3 FM in Nankmanduri, and in the Hafo region, hear us on Hames Radio 106.5 FM in Goso. You can also join us with your text messages and WhatsApp messages on 0549 996 996, 0549 986 996. Ejubi has our first story.
President John Dramani Mahama has directed the Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation to work with the National Communications Authority (NCA) to immediately restore the broadcast of 64 radio stations that were recently shut down due to regulatory issues. The NCA had ordered the immediate suspension of operations of more than 60 FM broadcasting stations across the country, including prominent outlets such as Asasi Radio and Wuntumi FM, for over multiple regulatory breaches. But President Mahama, in a statement, underscored the importance of balancing compliance with the protection of free speech, urging regulators to consider a more accommodating approach. Addressing Parliament on the development, Communications Minister Sam Nate George urged the defaulting media houses to take advantage of the 30-day clemency granted by President Mahama.
Preliminary audit revealed over 600 active radio stations with frequencies, many of which were inactive, expired, or improperly renewed. Mr. Speaker, as of this morning, the NCA has commenced phase 2 of our regulatory enforcement following the broadcasting regulation frequency audit. This phase targets several categories of non-compliant FM stations whose operations contravene existing laws and regulations, and includes the following. Group 1, 28 FM radio stations who are currently operating with expired authorizations. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President, directed that the Ministry of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation work with the regulator, the NCA, to allow all the affected radio stations some additional time to correct the identified breaches within a defined time frame. Those who fail to do so shall have their authorizations formally revoked under the law. In line with this directive from His Excellency the President, the Ministry and the NCA have granted a further 30-day grace period to all defaulting entities. Mr. Speaker, this is not the same as the arbitrary revocations and hefty fines imposed under the previous administration. As the current government, the Ministry has also been instructed to waive all the applicable fines that should have been applied to the defaulting entities. Mr. Speaker, since morning, I have received calls from colleagues on both sides of the aisle, notifying me that some interests they may hold have been affected by the ongoing exercise. Dear honorable colleagues, we passed the laws and have a high bar set for ourselves as honorable members of this august house. We need to lead the way with exemplary conduct. As a ministry and regulator, we are status agnostic and will be fair to everyone irrespective of ethnic, religious, political, or social affiliation. Mr. Speaker, let me, just for the records, name the stations that have been affected. Table 1, FM stations that have been issued expiry of authorization letters for failure to apply for renewal. Number 1, Life World Broadcast Limited, operating in Ofinso on 94.3 FM. 2, Akpini Communication Limited, operating in Kpando on 96.7 FM. 3. Victory FM in Aflao, operating on 96.1 FM. 4. Oracle Multimedia, operating in Nadoli on 88.5 FM. 5. Jewel Group Limited in Duaria Kwanta, operating on 102.7. 6. Bolton Portfolio Limited, operating in Nkoko on 96.9 FM. 7. The Ghana Institute of Journalism, operating in Accra on 97.7 FM. Table 2. FM stations that were issued revocation notices. Act Forum Ghana Limited, operating in Akpafumimpiasem 88.1 FM. Chinias Empire Limited, operating in Tumu 96.3 FM. Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited. Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited, operating in Takrady on 101.3 FM. Number 10, Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited, operating in Accra on 95.9 FM. Jimbali Community Association in Jimbali 95.9. Kingdom Dynamic Kukrantumi 93.3. Asasi Broadcasting Company Limited in Accra on 99.5 FM. Dynamic Chapters Limited in Wenchi on 95.7. Global Media Alliance in Accra on 98.9. Hot Steve Media Association in Atimpoku on 87.7. Rejoice FM in Mim on 101.7. Sankofa in Takrady on 98.7. And Sweet FM in Chifopraso on 106.5. Mr. Speaker, our goal is not punishment, but accountability, order, and the responsible stewardship of a public critical resource. This is not routine housekeeping. This is a declaration against impunity, abuse, and inertia. The airwaves do not belong to the powerful and connected. They belong to the public, and we are duty-bound to govern them transparently and effectively. Our fight is not against free speech. It is against lawlessness, asset misappropriation, and regulatory defiance. I remain committed to reclaiming what rightfully belongs to the Ghanaian people and laying the foundations for a fair, modern, and technologically equipped broadcasting sector. Once again, Mr. Speaker, due to the clemency His Excellency the President has asked for, there is 30 days from today for all defaulting media houses to rectify their default and breaches. And Mr. Speaker, the ministry has shown that we are willing to reinstate. Earlier this year, we shut down 6 media houses who have all rectified their breaches and they have been reinstated. We urge the defaulting media houses to take advantage of the President's clemency for 30 days.
Samuel Nate George is Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation. Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament has strongly criticized recent actions taken by the National Communications Authority (NCA), arguing that they constitute an infringement on media freedom. Speaking on the floor of Parliament, Minority Leader Alexander Penyomarkin also dismissed the 30-day grace period granted by President Mahama as a belated and insufficient response to the issue.
Let's not justify in any way this attitude of shut down. If yesterday we were loud on the rooftops that it is not good to suspend or shut down, then today let us maintain the same principle and say that we would rather have an administrative engagement. Why should Asase Radio be denied the opportunity to broadcast? Why will Wuntumi be denied opportunity? Why is Wuntumi suffering? Why is Wuntumi suffering? Why is Wuntumi suffering? What has Wuntumi done? What at all has Wuntumi done? Mr. Speaker, if we say we want to perfect our democracy, then we must be seen to be walking that talk towards perfecting our democracy. This business of it happened yesterday, so we must continue this vicious cycle. Mr. Speaker, it won't help any of us. Today, I will repeat what I've been saying since 7 January 2025, that this power of 187 is not permanent. We have seen 169 before, and we saw 137. So let us all be guided and know that the power immediately you are given is like an ice block. It begins to melt. We should be guided so that when the power comes to us, we will remember to put in certain blocks that one day we will use it for equity in times of need. But if you have a member for Kwesi Mintim who now says in his submission that he is applauding the harsh measures, the punitive actions of a regulatory authority, which is contrary to constitution. If a lawyer from Kwesi Mintim and a member of this house argues that he finds no problem with an administrative authority vested with regulatory powers exceeding its mandate, let me, Mr. Speaker, ask for Hansard.
Honorable Minority
It would
Leader.
always be a great
Honorable Minority
witness.
Leader.
So, Mr. Speaker,
Please operate within Order 91.4.
very well.
So,
Mr. Speaker, all that we are saying today will be referred to tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. So I would want to encourage Honorable Sector Minister to rather deepen the engagement process as directed by the President. Some of these belated actions for the purpose of optics will not help the cause of democracy. Stay away from the punitive actions. Stay away from this excuse of you need to enforce a regulation, especially when in enforcing the regulation you may be slipping out of the confines of the Constitution. We, as the minority here, will always move with full force to support all those who will be at the receiving end of any form of injustice. Mr. Speaker.
You heard Minority Leader Alexander Penyomakin speaking there. The Majority Caucus in Parliament has rebuked the minority for what it describes as unwarranted attacks on ministers who are diligently carrying out their mandates. Speaking in Parliament, Majority Leader Mahama Yareka called on the minority to adopt a more constructive approach by supporting ministers in the execution of their duties rather than politicizing national issues.
The NPP was in power in 2008, and the laws that govern electronic communication and the National Communication Authority, which define the obligations of license owners, were passed by the NPP. So I am surprised that today, the leader of the minority, an MPP leader of the minority, and a lawyer for that matter, will stand in this chamber and say that it is unconstitutional and a violation of the Constitution for laws to be passed governing the management of frequencies. And yet, it was your party and your government in 2008 that enacted those legislation through this parliament. So I think that when you urge others to be consistent, you must also be consistent yourself. So if you say Sam George has to be consistent, I also want you to also be consistent. Be consistent with the position of your party on the management of frequencies. And as for His Excellency the President, I'm surprised that you will say that he is being magnanimous because of public backlash. When did the suspensions take place? And when did that public backlash occur that I sitting here haven't heard? When did that public backlash occur? The suspension occurred at what time of the day? At 10 a.m. this morning. And the clemency came at 12. Within 2 hours, who could have exercised such public backlash that His Excellency the President will be magnanimous to the extent that he is being? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, yes, we are representatives of the people, but first and foremost, if we sit in this house and laws are being violated and ministers are taking steps to enforce those laws, and we stand in this house and attempt to condemn those ministers, then we might as well stop coming here, because we are not here to make laws that should not be enforced. So when ministers are enforcing the laws, we should be the first to be commending them. I remember saying this about this same minister the last time he tried to enforce the law, and some members stood in this house and made statements that seemed to undermine efforts to enforce the law. This is the last thing that should be happening in this country, in this house, that we have enacted a law and a minister is enforcing the law, and we will stand in this chamber and try to take the minister on for enforcing the law. Please, let's stop it. Otherwise, there's no use being in this house. Mr. Speaker, on those very few words, I think that I commend the minister. We thank the President for his decision to direct the minister to suspend his actions. But the minister has given a timeline, and I think that all of us should be urging the media stations, the radio stations, the media houses to try and comply with the law. When it is genuinely difficult to comply with the law, I'm sure the minister will know. When you actually make an effort, the minister will know. And the minister will not arbitrarily just shut down or suspend a radio station when there is clear evidence that the radio station is making effort to comply with the law.
Majority Leader Mahama Ayarega speaking there.
Let's go into the phone line and speak to Suleiman Abraham. He's the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. Suleiman, good evening. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Did this come to you as a surprise in any way?
Well, I wouldn't say that it came to me as a surprise. It's something that I've gotten a wind of in terms of the audit that was ongoing. All along, my concern was, are we going to see a very fair, transparent process if actions were going to be taken against those who have gone against the law? Are we going to see a very fair, transparent process instead of what we saw in 2019 when there was clearly a politically motivated exercise to shut down opposition aligned radio stations?
There are many who have also said that these media houses, are expected to go according to law. And I've even heard, a former information minister say that there are quite a number of media or radio stations in Ghana, over 500. And so such moves by the NCA is helping, reduce the number of radio stations in Ghana, because we have too many of them and some of them should be reduced. How do you, react to such arguments?
Well, first of all, I think when the frequencies are being issued by the NCA, I don't think that the NCA does so without knowing how many frequency authorizations have been granted. And so, for me, the problem is not about how many radio stations or a question of whether or not we should reduce them. That is for another conversation in terms of the media ecosystem, the sustainability functionability of media, the viability of media, and so on. I think on this occasion we are talking about regulatory compliance, and the frequency is a scarce resource, is a public resource. So if you go for a frequency, there are terms and conditions that you are supposed to abide by. And I think that as a country, we need to develop that culture of rule of law. We cannot have a situation where you go for a frequency, the authorization expires, you continue to broadcast and disregard the law about frequency authorization. As I said previously, what we had a concern with was the fact that they did it so discriminatorily, shutting down, stations that were obviously aligned to the opposition, and leaving those that are aligned to the government with the same infractions to continue to broadcast. So for me, if it is done fairly and the law is being enforced, I don't think that we have to have qualms with it. And that is why I seem to have a problem with the position taken by my very good friend, the minority leader, Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin. The law, they sit in Parliament to make laws. The essential function of Parliament is to make laws. And when those laws are made, they are not just to be made for the sake of having laws passed. I think they are made to be used. They are made to be implemented. And before a law is made, it is considered that if that law is made and it is fully adhered to, it will be something that would help the development of our society. So it's quite strange that somebody would argue that yes, the law is there. Those who have abused the law, let them go free. Otherwise, then we'll all jump up and then begin to grab frequencies and start to broadcast. And I don't think that we can run our country like that.
He also has a bit of political motivation or political undertone in this, because he gave examples like the Asase Radio and then Wuntumi, which is well known that it belongs to persons affiliated to the MPP, and he believes that there's some way, somehow, some political undertone in this decision to shut them down.
So that is why I've said, I when you were playing the tape, I was listening to the minister, and when the 6 stations were shut down, I had the occasion to engage with the minister. And if you look on our website, you will find that we even issued a statement saying that the new government is beginning to tread on a very dangerous path of what the old regime did. And it was pointed to me clearly that there are a number of stations that are even owned by NDC people, known NDC people. And for me, as I said, if there's a station in Pando, there's a station in Hohoi, and so on and so forth. These stations are obviously persons, that are affiliated or aligned to the NDC, one way or the other. And so, if Asase or Wuntumi has gone against the law because it is owned by Gabi and others, or is owned by Wuntumi, it should be allowed to broadcast illegally? No. But what was done previously, when Radio Gold was shut down, when XYZ was shut down, a station like Oman FM had committed the same infringement, but they were allowed to broadcast. And that, for me, was the problem. If we were going by the law, let's go after all those who have abused the law. Otherwise, then let everybody, continue with impunity. And on this occasion, I think what we will be looking for is if, for example, the Honorable Minister or anybody at all is able to say, this other station is in the same category as Asase or Wuntumi, and yet it was not included in the list of stations that were to be sanctioned. I think that if that happens, we'll certainly have an issue with what is happening. Other than that, it doesn't matter whether it is owned by President Akufo-Addo or owned by President Mahama. If we are going by the law, let the law take its course.
An intervention has come in from the president, asking that they be given some 30-day grace period to rectify all the challenges they are going through. But others will also say that a presidential intervention, if we want state institutions to work and the law to work, we do not need such intervention. We should allow the laws to work.
Well, for me, it's quite curious that the minister or the regulator, in conjunction with the minister, issue a statement suspending media organizations, and almost immediately there's another statement from the president directing the suspension the minister's, suspension directive is quite curious, because I would assume that maybe before such a decision is made, the president would have been aware. But let's assume that the president wasn't aware and therefore decided that the way to go about it is to allow these media organizations some reprieve, and as was directed, the minister and the regulator should give some time for these media organizations to regularize their authorization. I think it's in good direction in terms of maybe for the first time let's do it, but I don't think that is something that should continue.
Finally, before I let you go, Suleiman, there's also the argument about putting a ceiling on the number of licenses that can be, given to persons to run radio stations and TV stations, because the argument is that if it's less, there can be proper monitoring and proper regulation. But then, if we just open the floodgates, quite a number of media houses, including radio and TV in this country, it makes monitoring a bit difficult for the NCA. You agree with the person who said there should be a ceiling?
Well, I wouldn't say that there should be a ceiling, but obviously the number of media organizations, currently there are over 500 radio stations on air, more than 100 television channels. Then, of course, we do have all the online media platforms, which sort of makes it difficult, not on the regulatory side, but in terms of the viability and sustainability of our media landscape. And we've all been concerned about media professionalism, independent journalism and all of that. Once you have the ecosystem that you have, independence becomes quite difficult, professionalism becomes something else, and big businesses then begin to be the ones that take over the airwaves. Right now, that is what is happening. Almost every big business owner has a radio station or a TV station. Almost a lot of MPs, a lot of political leaders have a radio station or a television station. It makes our media landscape quite cacophonous and difficult to manage. But that will require a look at the Constitution, because the Constitution says that there shall be no impediments in the establishment of a media organization. So anybody at all can decide they want to have a media outlet, and I don't think that it will be proper for the NCA to say, well, we want 100 radio stations, we've given out 100 frequency authorizations, and therefore no more. If that should happen, I think that it can be challenged in court, because as the Constitution says, there shall be no impediment. Yes, the frequencies are natural resources, very scarce, and until we say, well, it's been exhausted, it might be difficult to say you are no longer giving out frequencies. But that's a conversation that we can have.
Suleiman, thank you very much for your time. Suleiman Brahma is the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. This is Eyewitness News, coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. Some of your text messages, they've come in thick and fast. One here says, Apenyo Markin should stop doing politics with this issue. His politics is to the extreme and does not apply any logic as far as this issue is concerned. Must he always bring politics into every issue? How can he be asking why Asasi Radio and Wuntumi should not be allowed to operate when clearly they have violated the laws? This is too much and it must end. Mausi Aibi from the voter register says, I support President Mohammed's directive urging the communications minister to grant radio stations a 30-day period to rectify operational breaches. This fair approach ensures compliance without immediate shutdowns, unlike the previous administration. Unlike what the previous administration did. It promotes dialogue, improvement, and sustainable media operations, fostering growth and accountability in Ghana's broadcasting industry. Indeed, we have a listening president. Akapo in Hafomim says, you announced an increase in data a few days ago and have turned to slap us with close to 62 radio stations being shut down. This government does not cease to amaze me. Hadi from Pig Farm. Is Asasi Radio and Wuntumi Radio better than Radio Gold? Honorable Apenyo Markin should have his say on the Radio Gold issue as well. Prince Henry in Kofodia says, Why is Apenyomakin crying? Is Apenyomakin saying that because of his political party, the law must not be applied? Apenyomakin must come again. The law is the law and the law must work. Jones Adoboyinla says, I think the Honorable Minister's directive to sanitize the airwaves of this country is best. We only have radio stations who do absolutely nothing. The decision is in the best interest of the country. This is Eyewitness News coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. We go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll do more stories.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the game of choices. Listen with rapt attention. Round 1, question 1. Elevator or stairs?
Stairs.
Now the second question. Less than 4 hours or at least 6 hours of sleep at night?
At least 6 hours of sleep.
The last question. Yomi yogurt or...
Yomi yogurt, of course.
Oh, I'm not done.
No need. That's my choice. Yomi yogurt.
Life is full of choices. Always remember that the choices we make today shape our tomorrow. Whether it's a morning start, a midday snack, or a dessert, our delicious Yomi yogurt is here to nourish you. Yummy, a nourishing choice. This advert is FDA approved.
Afternoon.
Oh, afternoon.
Please, Momo.
Deposit or withdrawal?
Withdrawal.
Ah, I like how you say withdrawal. How much?
500 Ghana.
Why allow cash out?
Yes.
I feel ball number no mami why?
0241 789.
Ah, nice one. Approve.
Please, the agent's name, is it Mipesika Bebre 2 Coin Ventures?
Hey, into what body you need now?
She. My alert, I have to verify.
Always confirm the name of the person you are receiving money from before accepting a request. If you receive a request from a friend to send money to an unfamiliar number, call to confirm before taking action. Do not share your number with strangers for the purpose of receiving e-cash in exchange for physical cash, because the source could be criminal and result in legal actions against you.
MTN. Are you feeling tired after a hard day's work? Have you lost your appetite even for your favorite dish? Viral Blood Tonic is a nutritionally balanced, pleasant-tasting tonic fortified with iron and vitamins to boost your appetite and energy levels for high performance. Viral Blood Tonic, easy to take and good for the family. Viral from Danex Iting Starwin PLC. If symptoms persist after 48 hours, consult a physician. This advert is FDA approved.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
You're welcome back. You're still listening to Eyewitness News, coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. My name is Sami Wiafi, and tonight I'm here with Ejubi Wiafi, who has our next story.
The Office of the President has officially responded to a petition by investigative journalist Manasseh Azure Awuni confirming that the contract between the Youth Employment Agency and waste management firm Zoomlion Ghana Limited has expired and will not be renewed. In a letter issued today and signed by the Secretary to the President, Dr. Callistus Mahama, the Presidency acknowledged the concerns raised in Azure's April 27 petition and outlined key decisions made following a government review. The Presidency further disclosed that all payments made to Zoomlion after the contract's expiration will be subjected to a comprehensive audit. Speaking on Newsfeed on Channel 1 TV, Manasseh Azure Awuni welcomed the decision and commended the government.
With a very glad heart, because this is an issue that has worried me for so long a time. Anytime I'm driving to work and I see these unfortunate people sweeping, what comes to mind is what they get out of that at the end of the month. And knowing how much the state spends and how little gets to them, and for which reason a lot of them have stopped working, yet every month they are billed and then we pay. It has been both disturbing and sometimes annoying. There have been times I felt like just giving up, but the more I see, the more I felt I should keep fighting. So having a president to respond in this manner gladdens my heart.
The president says going forward, the distribution will be done on regional basis. Is this something that you have been asking for all this while?
Well, Zoomlion has so many contracts, and some of them don't even have to go out in the first place. When you look at the sweepers, every assembly in Ghana has the capacity to supervise people to sweep. If it is about the trucks that they don't have, that is covered under a different contract. Every assembly would have to sign its own contract. The fumigation contracts are a rip-off. One can safely say these are fraudulent deals. And if you take every report of the Auditor General on the District Assembly's Common Fund, you would realize what I'm talking about. So for some of the contracts, they don't have to survive, but a few that would have to perhaps continue, every assembly should have the power to determine which contractor they would engage, because as it stands now, a lot of the payments are made in Accra. Zoomlion is paid in Accra, and it has to go and work at the assemblies. The assemblies don't have copies of the contract. If you take this sweepers contract, no assembly has a copy, but they pay for the service. And so if the assemblies are not swept and you go there, they say, well, it is Zoomlion. We don't have any control over those contracts. So I think when the assemblies begin to have a say, determine who gets what contract and who gets paid, I think sanitation will improve and there will be value for money.
Very well. The response from the presidency also said that the amount of monies as salaries which are paid to these sweepers is going to be increased. This was also one of the issues that you have been raising all this while. How do you welcome that news as well?
Well, it is good news, and we hope that this raise will not be maybe 100 or 200 cedis raise. We know the condition of the standard of living of these people, and we know the cost of living too. So if they are promising a raise, we hope it will be, as the government said, a livable fee, something that currently the arrangement says they should be given, or they should be allocated 850, so that Zoomlion takes 600 per person and gives each one 250. And if you look at the daily wage, if you divide that 250 by even 26 or 30, they cannot get buy wache. That is when they close from work, they cannot buy wache or kinky. And this for me is too low. So it is welcome news that these people are going to be paid well. And if they are to give all the 850 to them, I don't even think it is out of place. It won't even be enough considering the cost of living that we find ourselves in, because they don't have health insurance, their transportation to the places they sweep, nothing. So if they go to work and they get injured, they are on their own. And I think we should treat them well. They are Ghanaians, they are humans.
Very briefly, now the assemblies are now going to be in charge of the collection of refuse at the various centers. What advice will you give the assembly in terms of contract to, for example, Zoomlion or any other waste management company?
When it comes to these contractual issues, it is common knowledge that some of the government officials do not seek the interests of their districts or the places they run. Many of them are preoccupied with giving contracts that will yield kickbacks. And so the point is, if it is leaving YEA or the central government and going there, our attention is now going to be on the assemblies, the DCs. If your assembly is dirty and then you award a contract and you take kickbacks, people are going to complain. The investigations that used to be centered on those who award a contract here will extend to them. And there's likely to be accountability at every level.
You heard investigative journalist Manasseh Azura Awuni speaking to Hawa Idrisu Mustafa on Channel 1 TV's news feed. Away from that, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association is expected to decide the future of its ongoing strike following its next National Council meeting. This was disclosed by the chairman of Parliament's Health Committee, Dr. Mark Nawani, after a stakeholder engagement he described as fruitful. The industrial action, which began on June 2, stems from the government's failure to implement the association's 2024 collective agreement. Dr. Mark Nawani addressed the press after the meeting.
We've been sitting down for the past 4 hours, from 10 o'clock up to 2 o'clock. And we've had a very fruitful negotiations. We've tried to understand each other. We have tried as much as possible to synchronize our activities. And now, what we can say at this moment is that the discussions were fruitful, and we've asked, or the nurses have requested that they have to go back to their council. By their regulations, they have to go back to their council, and then we'll come back, or they'll come back, or we'll hear something from them. I think that is fair. If the Busapayins to send you to go and lead a discussion, you have to bring back the information to them first before any other issue can come out. So at this juncture, I know that you want some information more than this. Yes. But let's just exercise patience.
Dr. Mark Nawani is chairman of Parliament's Health Committee.
Let's go to the phone lines and speak to Dr. Kingsley Ajima. He's a member of Parliament for the Buakwa South constituency, a member of the Health Committee. He was in that meeting, was part of this meeting that took place today in Parliament. Doc, good evening. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, Sammy.
First of all, why was this particular meeting called? Was it to help resolve the current strike?
Absolutely so. I mean, we invoked our oversight responsibility, and the way the strike action has taken a direction where entrenchment was the issue. Parliament needed to come in to have a non-partisan discussion jet towards a resolution. And that's exactly what happened today. Almost a 4-hour meeting, and say with all confidence that it was very fruitful with high expectations.
And the concerns of the nurses were?
The usual ones that has been in the media, the implementation of the CDA, asking for reasonable things. And I must say that all stakeholders, the Fair Wages Commission, Labour Commission, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Health, and the nurses themselves, we had a very fruitful discussion. I mean, they gave their words that the council is going to meet this evening, and we are very certain that something fruitful or positive will come out.
Doc, the nurses have maintained and still maintain that they don't want anything. What they want is a full implementation of the collective agreement. That's all they want. And so if there should be a renegotiation or a negotiation, they are not in for that. All that they are hoping for or expecting is the full implementation of this whole agreement. And so coming back, a lot of people do not really think that they are even going to come back because their concern is implement what has already been agreed on.
I mean, we are very hopeful. Unfortunately, you were not part of the meeting.
No, so I wasn't.
based on the discussions that we have had, we are very positive that we'll hear something good from the council.
And the stakeholders you mentioned, Fair Wages and the Finance Ministry, gave a firm commitment on meeting them halfway or meeting them fully and implementing this collective agreement.
There were some agreements which they are referring to their council. And what is most important to us is that we are asking them to do certain things. Definitely, it's a give and take affair. And the negotiation was very, very conclusive. And we hope to hear from the council.
Would you be kind enough to share some of the details, if not all, at least a little bit? Because why I'm asking is that our listeners are concerned. These are people who go to public hospitals. They go there, and these nurses are not there, making healthcare delivery a bit of a challenge. So if you don't mind to share a bit of details on some of the agreements as you've mentioned to us.
The vanguard is that, or the assurance is that we are hopeful that something positive will come, because the meeting came out with a very positive feedback. Let's wait for the council. And they gave their words that we'll hear from the council. So we are very hopeful, and we are in wait to receive something positive from the council.
Did the association give a time frame as to when they will get back to the
I'm sure they said the council was going to meet this evening. So we hope to hear something positive.
Okay, Doc. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Family.
Dr. Kingsley Ajima is Member of Parliament for the Buakwa South Constituency, a member of the Health Committee of Parliament. He is aware the striking nurses and midwives, or the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, today met the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health in a way to help resolve the ongoing strike, which has entered, we are told, the fifth set, almost the 10th day, where nurses have not been in the various public hospitals, and that is causing a bit of upset within the healthcare delivery state. Meanwhile, the minority or the ranking member on the Health Committee today made a statement on the floor of Parliament in respect of this striking nurses.
Ranking member on Parliament's Health Committee, Dr. Ayu Efriye, has expressed optimism about a possible resolution to the ongoing nationwide strike by the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Delivering an official statement on the floor of Parliament, Dr. Efriye acknowledged the impact of the strike on healthcare delivery, but indicated that recent engagements between stakeholders suggest a resolution is imminent.
Inasmuch as the minority caucus respect the rights of our nurses and sympathize with them in pursuit of their rights, we are pleading with them to be merciful to the plight of Ghanaians and return to work as they look forward for government to engage them positively. Mr. Speaker, to add, today, your committee, your non-partisan committee, after a good discussion, have been able for us to make a peaceful way, and we hope there will be a good news by close of day because of our cooperative stance.
Ranking member on Parliament's Health Committee, Dr. Ayu Efriye. Moving on, the Ghana Health Service has advised the public to report early any unusual rush as Mpox cases continue to rise. Ghana has recorded 85 cases of the disease with no deaths. Although the Health Service has assured that the situation remains under control, Director of Public Health Dr. Franklin Asiedu-Bequin in a media interview urged Ghanaians to remain vigilant and observe preventive measures.
We are saying that when somebody has the rash, let's avoid that direct contact and also avoid contact with the linens of the person. So either avoiding direct or indirect contact. And then if you have the rash, we don't expect you to be going around mingling. What we expect you to do is go to the nearest health facility so that you be tested.
Is there cause for alarm now that the cases are getting?
No, I think that what is good for us as a country is that there's a lot of awareness that we don't take it for granted that a rash is just a normal rash, because it can infect others. And then, assuming you have your immune system which is not very strong, you can die. So we are saying that people should go to the health facility early and seek treatment.
Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Franklin Asiedu-Bequin. Now, the Ghana Water Limited has reaffirmed its zero-tolerance stance on illegal water connections across the country. The warning follows the discovery of 2 illegal connections at Parland near Ritz Junction in Accra. The operation, carried out with the support of the company's board chairman, Biligio Adama, was initiated after a tip-off. In one of the cases, a customer was found to have 3 separate connections, only one of which was metered. The remaining 2 were being used to supply water illegally to tanker operators. Though the illegal lines have since been disconnected, Regional Production Manager for the Accra Tema Metropolitan Area, Dr. Hadisu Al-Hassan, stated that the culprits will be prosecuted in accordance with the law.
If you look at an enterprise like this, and the quantity of water they record that they consume at the end of the month, it's nauseating, it's insulting. That you sell water to tankers and pay as low as 300 to 1,000 cedis a month and all that. It's just inappropriate. And we are out to crack the whip. We are out to take the general public who are involved in this one as as well as our own people. So our people will not be due process would be put in. We involve the security agencies, and then we follow due process. While the security agencies do their part, we also do our commercial bits, and then ensure that we get the right benefits from this. Whatever we've been robbed of, we should be able to recover that.
Dr. Hadisu Al-Hassan is Regional Production Manager for the Accra Tema Metropolitan Area.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Charlie, where are you?
Boss man, I'm at the bank.
Really? But your car is in front of your house.
Bro, my bank on my phone, Charlie.
Oh, how?
EcoBank, bro. With EcoBank mobile app, I can do everything, anywhere, anytime. Listen, I just checked my account balance, paid Ahmed's school fees, and sent money to my grandma at Walwale.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Masa, just download the EcoBank mobile app from the Google Play Store or the App Store, or dial *770# and be your own bank manager.
Manager.
Whether to pay bills or fees, to check account statements, send money across Ghana, abroad, and more, EcoBank mobile app has got it covered. EcoBank Mobile, making everyday people live everyday lives the EcoBank way. EcoBank, the Pan-African bank.
Oh, jump on now.
Go. Ah, Google me. At what time when you come back, we are not hear the sound of your car. Why you buy new car?
No, I not change my car. It be the same ride. It be the fuel way I change. Way one shouts it. Ever since I started using the all-new Excellium Premium Fuel, fortified with 3-in-1 action. Oh, Joe, now my car they run like electric car. No, it's so.
This is the type of fuel where they want to. Cause now engine they cost. Where they want for way if I buy it, it go protect my engine. And with the small way I buy, I go drive, sir.
Absolutely. It's like strapping a turbocharger to your engine and giving it a protector. And what they bust my mind self be the 3-in-1 action, no? Excellium they prevent up to 99% of deposit. It be anti-wear, some be anti-corrosion. Won't pay when I open them.
Hey, so where can I find this magical fuel?
Just head over to any Total Energy service station and your car will thank you.
Hey, then make a finish Magobe fast, then rush go Total Energies. My friend, but why your hand the Magobe inside?
I give you info. Make a feel the gobe too small.
The gogo.
Excellium is designed to protect your car engine, decrease fuel consumption, and lower CO2 emissions. Don't say fuel, say Excellium. Choose Excellium, choose quality.
Former Budiatua and Famra Quinso, a Sumasi and Nuboni Edwadi, any Enua Enya Papa, a bo on my Ghana Kayepa, Yandati, and Yadi Atro Amaniemu, Edisse, or Koya Sai, a Wujedia and Famra Quinso, ya Yirimu, Sienina ya Kayaho Eboma, a Jedia and Famra Quinso, you bet me a Siano Quine, Abai Ashasia, a Jedia and Famra Quinso, watch it here, and Ransua a Fahono, wa Yirimu Kete, wa Bois Ama on my kanko ejina ne naso so bi kase wonu bedi dwa emfamra kwan so akase da bi se wo hunu se wo bi nso etu sa anamona yibambofo asutre yankamom sisi a ne yankuntia se ya madwadie mu da hofan a etofa pempa emanne ene enchirima nyina.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
Get the details. Every significant financial transaction, every market movement, and all the policies that affect your business. Citi Business News. Be informed.
Time now for Citi Business News on Eyewitness News. I am Ejubi Wiafe Akinti. Let's settle for the details. A former Minister of Trade and Industry, Dr. Ekos Piogabra, has called on African governments to reduce their fixation on U.S. tax and trade policies and instead focus on strengthening intra-African trade mechanisms to safeguard long-term economic stability. Speaking at the 2025 Citi Business Forum on Trade in Accra, Dr. Piogabra noted that while it remains essential for African nations to stay informed on global trade dynamics, excessive reactivity to external pressures risk undermining the continent's strategic development agenda.
Issue is how should Ghana respond to these gyrations from the American side? And I think the advice of my good friend Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, who is now the Director General of the World Trade Organization, actually is the most appropriate. That countries should relax and observe and monitor what is happening, because as I said, psychoanalysis. The bank can start tomorrow and say, okay, all tariffs have been removed, but only Ghana will take 50% of Ghana. We can do that tomorrow, either by Twitter or by X or by whatever. And that's the policy for 5 minutes, or for 20 minutes, or 2 hours. And then the next week can be something else. So the situation is so unpredictable. The unpredictability of the policy framework of the United States is what I would like to refer to, but also to acknowledge that now that we have the African Continental Free Trade Area, that's a regional trade-oriented institution, it's better for that organization to be the voice of Africa at this particular time than individual countries running around being scared about what they should do and not do, so that we take collective action.
Dr. Ekospio Gabra is former Minister of Trade and Industry. Meanwhile, the Chief Executive Officer of the African Center for Economic Transformation, Mavis Owusu-Gyamfi, called on the government to take the lead in fully operationalizing the Akosombo corridor to boost trade flows with neighboring countries and maximize regional connectivity.
In Africa, 14% of our trade is amongst ourselves. But 40% of this trade is manufacturing. So when we trade with ourselves, we trade on the thing that will deepen our economies, structurally transform our economies, and help us compete. Okay? Asia does it without setting up an AFCFTA. And they compete with the world by working together. And when they have a crisis, they come together and fix it. Okay? So we are busy panicking because of one country. And Mr. Koto, you were talking a lot about, the link between EU and Africa, and EU and America, and who takes our raw material and adds value to it, etc., etc., etc. For me, that is a red herring.
Chief Executive Officer of the African Center for Economic Transformation, Mavis Owusu-Gyamfi. The Citi Business Forum was under the theme The Global Tariffs Disputes Navigating Ghana's Recovery Strategy. The Citi Business Festival 2025 is proudly sponsored by Absa Bank, MTN and Zonda Tech Ghana Limited, empowered by Channel 1 TV and Citi FM. In a move aimed at deepening trade ties and positioning Beijing as Africa's key economic partner, China has unveiled plans to offer zero-tariff treatments to all 53 African countries with which it maintains diplomatic relations. The initiative excludes Eswatini, the only African country that maintains diplomatic recognition of Taiwan. Here is more.
Follows recent U.S. tariff hikes under President Trump, with new levies imposed on imports from key African exporters. Lesotho now faces tariffs of up to 50%, while Madagascar, Mauritius, Botswana and South Africa have also been hit with steep duties ranging from 31 to 47%. Already, several African nations are facing increasing trade friction with the United States. However, the China-Africa joint statement is calling on all nations, particularly the U.S., to resolve trade disputes through dialogue based on mutual respect, criticize the unilateral measures that disadvantage developing economies. Beijing's zero-tariff initiative is widely seen as both a diplomatic and economic strategy. With China's domestic economy grappling with slowing growth, the move is expected to stimulate Africa's exports to the Chinese market while supporting Chinese state-owned enterprises seeking new demand overseas. China remains Africa's largest bilateral lender and a leading infrastructure partner, with this latest policy reinforcing its long-term investment footprint across the continent.
Netele Nete Ajaho filed that report. Away from that, the Collateral registry at the Bank of Ghana is calling for the creation of specialized courts to handle cases involving loan defaults more efficiently. The registry argues that the current civil litigation process is often lengthy, leading to a decline in the value of collateral assets by the time rulings are made. At a stakeholder forum marking the registry's 15th anniversary, manager at the Collateral Registry, Dr. Benjamin Osei-Tutu, appealed to the judiciary to consider reforms to the existing legal framework.
Once any borrower finds a way to bring them back to the court, the issues are sustained and unfortunately they stay in court for so long. using their own civil procedure rules to prosecute the issues brought before them, which in the first place should not have been there. And so again, until such time, and some of the things Mr. Sherman Plant and his team are looking forward to do is to refine the recourse mechanisms in the framework, so that even if, for some strange reasons, an extrajudicial enforcement would have to end up in court, the court would deal with the matters expeditiously, because as a matter of fact, you cannot say that you will not allow anyone recourse to the courts.
That was the manager at the Collateral Registry, Dr. Benjamin Osei-Tutu. Meanwhile, the BOG says it plans to enhance its Collateral Registry department to align with the ongoing digitalization of the economy. Dr. Seto Kwabla, head of the Regional Branch Coordinating Office, speaking on the behalf of the Second Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Mathilda Asante-Asiedu, says future enhancements will focus on adapting the registry's operations to evolving digital financial systems in the economy.
The Collateral Registry continues to play a critical role in reducing transactional costs by streamlining the process of registering and searching for collateral and improving small and medium-sized enterprises' access to credit. These achievements are not only a testament to the foresight of those who have pioneered the registry, but also to the hard work of the dedicated team that continues to operate and modernize it. As our economy becomes more digital, the demand for innovative credit solutions will continue to grow. The Collateral Registry will evolve to meet these needs by integrating with other digital platforms such as credit bureaus, digital identity systems, and e-government platforms. The goal is to build a fully interoperable financial infrastructure that supports real-time data-driven decision-making and inclusive access to finance.
Dr. Seto Kwabla, head of the Regional Branch Coordinating Office of the Bank of Ghana, speaking there. Now, the government has reaffirmed its commitment to allocating the necessary resources to complete the runway extension project at the Prempeh I International Airport in Kumasi by the end of this year. According to Minister for Transport Joseph Nikwe Bukari, the completion of the project will enable Kumasi to safely accommodate larger international aircraft. He made the remarks at a stakeholder forum organized by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority in Accra.
The Kumasi Airport runway, we have a beautiful terminal in Kumasi. Everything is okay, except that the runway is a little bit short for some of the medium body aircraft. And currently we have the runway space up to 1,881. We want to improve it or want to increase it from that to 2,320 meters. With that, any flight that is coming from long distance and the medium body aircrafts will be able to use the facility. We are very hopeful that by end of this year, the runway would have been completed and will be put to use.
That was the Minister for Transport, Joseph Nikwe Bukari, speaking there. That's all for Citi Business News on Eyewitness News. I am Ejibi Wiafe Akenting. Up next is Point Blank.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Are you ready to lead like never before?
Ready to master the art of strategy and inspire teams that thrive?
It's the Management Bootcamp 2025.
An exclusive high-impact training for mid to senior pros.
Learn from Ghana's finest industry minds, brought to you by Channel 1 TV and 97.3 Citi FM.
From the trusted voices of excellence, Citi FM and Channel 1 TV, comes an elite training experience designed to sharpen your strategy, leadership, and communication.
Make a date for the Management Bootcamp 2025 from Sunday the 22nd of June to Saturday the 28th of June 2025. The venue is the Platinum Bay and Passion Base Hotels.
Call 0242-011-424 to register now.
The Management Bootcamp 2025. Lead forward. The Management Bootcamp 2025 is powered by Channel 1 TV with support from 97.3 Citi FM.
This advert is FDA approved.
Fun fact, did you know that most frogs can leap more than 20 times their body length? Yup, magical. Now just imagine your business with that kind of reach. Take that leap with Frog. Frog is a bulk SMS, voice messaging, and IVR from Wiggle. User-friendly, fast, and reliable. Get more features on one platform for all your bulk messaging needs. Whether you're a church, financial institution, school, corporate organization, or individual, if you need to reach people with your services, do it with Frog. Contact 0553 019 529 or 0552 809 558. Speak to us at www.wiggle.com.gh. Frog, a leap into greatness.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Those are listening to Eyewitness News, coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. And this is Point Blank. My guest on Point Blank tonight is the Member of Parliament for the Wolensi constituency. He's an independent Member of Parliament. And his name is Nadaya Yao Stanley. And he's my guest tonight on Point Blank. A first-time Member of Parliament representing the people of the Wolensi constituency. But he's an independent Member of Parliament, has said that he is going to side with the majority side in Ghana's Parliament. In a short while, we'll speak to him. He was supposed to be in our studio, but then issues with traffic, so he's on his way. But then we'll start the interview on telephone, and when he gets into the studio, we will continue. You have a bit of a challenge connecting to the Member of Parliament for the Walensee constituency. But then as we try that tonight as well, if you're aware, this morning, the 2025 edition of the Citi Business Festival was held. This year's forum was under the theme Global Tariff Dispute, Navigating Ghana's Recovery Strategy, brought together top economists, trade experts, business leaders, and policy makers. Host of the Citi Breakfast Show, Bernard Avle, sat with former Trade and Industry Minister Dr. Ekospio Gabra, Head of Trade and Working Capital at Absa Bank Emmanuel Mensah, Africa Center for Economic Transformation CEO Mavis Owusu Jemfi, and Confidant Managing Partner Michael Cotto to discuss how global or ongoing global trade tensions are impacting developing countries like Ghana, especially as the country works to stabilize its economy. Let's take a listen to some of the highlights of today's discussion.
Emmanuel, so you are a finance guy, you're a trade guy, you're one of the world's largest banks. How have you been monitoring what's happening from the US? How seismic has the tariff policy implementation by Mr. Trump been in terms of your outlook?
Bernard, if you ask me, it's quite going to be varied in terms of how these geopolitical tensions when it comes to global trade and its impact on our economies, especially African economies, and particularly the economy of Ghana. The direct impact, as Michael indicated during his presentation, we might see it as quite minimal, but there are ripple effects that come to fall because of this. And I'll cite an example of what will happen if this tension continues to exist within these big players, where if the big players like China and the rest of Europe are being locked out of getting access to the European market, the swiftest and quickest intervention is to explore other markets, and they will turn their eyes on Africa. What will that mean for our production businesses in Ghana and on the African continent? What does that mean when it comes to direct investment into the continent? And I'll cite an example around the steel industry, where US is restricting importation of steel into their countries. What then will happen is that these big, China is the largest when it comes to steel manufacturing. They'll be exporting these into the African continent, and particularly Ghana. What does that mean for our steel industry? What does that mean for economic growth, impact on GDP, inflation, unemployment? So for me, I see this as a very big thing that we need to take a critical look at. But then, Bernard, my other point is we've seen such tensions in the past.
Okay.
As a country, I think we are too late, and maybe I'll say it's never late. We are too late in time in strategizing and trying to navigate this maze of geopolitics. And I like the point Michael indicated where he says we need to build trade intelligence. We have Ghana Statistical Service. What can they do? It's good to have a handle on your economic data points and do research and all that. But we should be taking keen interest in what is happening in other people's backyard. And that should guide us in navigating. I believe if we had this and is informing policy strategies, this wouldn't be much of a challenge for us. We are just caught in the web because we are really not prepared as a country to navigate.
Wonderful. Let me take the first time thought. Thank you, Emmanuel. Let me take the first time thoughts of Mavis on this from the perspective of how shocking and how seismic is this. Mavis, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernard. So let me begin by saying, like everything that President Trump has done, it shouldn't be a surprise. This has been coming for a long time. All that Trump did in his second term is push us off the cliff. Okay? So trade wars, we've been debating and discussing it for a long time. Our relationship with Europe as Africa has been shifting for a while. The difference is Europe did not push us off a cliff edge. When Trump came in his first term, most of the tariffs he put in place were kept by the Democrats. Okay, nothing changed. And so what tends to happen is in his second term, he decided, this is too slow. And he's pushed everybody off a cliff edge, and we all seem surprised by it. So the first thing is, for me, Bernard, it's not a surprise. We've seen this coming. It's the time frame that seems to have shocked everybody. And the fact that it has been, let's move, let's stop, let's move, let's stop, let's move, that, let's stop, tells you about the uncertainty and the lack of an analysis underpinning this and the amount of work. It's shocking the system for the system to respond. Okay? So what I think for me really was devastating as an African as we watched this process was, as soon as Trump announced the first round of tariffs and everybody was shocked, the Asians got together and started strategizing and planning. Okay? They didn't go one by one to see Trump. They didn't start negotiating with ambassadors at their nation states. They came together and said, as a sub-region, how do we respond to this issue? And came up with a game plan. Immediately, America realized that it had to take a different approach to how it engaged with Asia. Where is our common voice? And having said this, remember, ASEAN is not a bloc. It doesn't tout to be AU or AFCFTA or any of the things we are so proud about. It doesn't do it. It doesn't have a theoretical framework it's proud about. But it had a structure for implementation in a crisis. So my first question, the thing that disappointed me the most in all of this, was Africa forgot why we set up the AFCFTA in the first place. Africa forgot the processes we have in place for the African Union. In fact, Africa even forgot we had the AFDB, because it wasn't until a week ago that I heard an AFDB position on the tariffs. We all started going one by one by one by one. So, and then the final point I wanted to make was, and then we are helter-skeltering again, including in our beloved Ghana, and saying, what is the impact going to be on us? What is the impact going to be on us? What is the impact going to be on us? I just want to leave you with one very quick statistic. We talk about diversification as if it's the most attractive thing on the planet Earth, and we do nothing about it, okay? In Africa, 14% of our trade is amongst ourselves, okay? But 40% of this trade is manufacturing, okay? So when we trade with ourselves, we trade on the thing that will deepen our economies, structurally transform our economies, and help us compete, okay? Asia does it without setting up an AFCFTA. And they compete with the world by working together, and when they have a crisis, they come together and fix it. Okay? So we are busy panicking because of one country. And Mr. Koto, you were talking a lot about, the link between EU and Africa. It's EU and America, and who takes our raw material and adds value to it, etc., etc., etc. For me, that is a red herring. The Lobito corridor should be our priority right now. The Akosombo corridor. Bernard, can I digress for 1 second? Just 1 second.
Feel free.
We have a 25% decrease on our imports all of a sudden. Suddenly we're paying 25% less on our imports because of the Citi appreciation. Okay? And we're talking about the Akosombo corridor. We know most of that stuff has to be imported in for us to build that industrial park that we want. Shouldn't this be the time when the business community and government should be sitting together to think through how we fast track that? So that we can start laying the foundation for trading with Africa and the rest of the world, instead of worrying about Trump's trade tariffs, which, to be honest, it's almost negligible on Ghana right now. If we are really honest, it's negligible on us.
So thank you, Mavis. A round of applause for Mavis. So I noticed that both you and Emmanuel are jumping straight into what ought to be done because you're in a hurry. But I'll still stick to my structure. I want to take opening thoughts from Dr. Spiogabra. Having done all the things you've done, how big is what's going on as a curveball or a black swan in the world? Doc, thank you.
Subject matter and the questions actually sets me reflecting from which of many perspectives you would prefer my answer to come from. Because I would say, with due respect and for the sake of those who may be younger and probably don't know me that well, I must confess that amongst my relevance to the subject is that I may be the only one here who has been an ambassador to the United States before. I may be wrong, but that's what I can see from the crowd. And therefore the question about Trump and his behavior in the United States, when posed to me from my diplomatic experience, will get a certain kind of answer. And that answer is that Trump as a human being is very much a very unpredictable person. And so much as we may be trying to analyze his decisions from a trade policy point of view, actually psychoanalysts may help us better in helping to uncover the likely actions of a man. May have a very good friend called Elon Musk only 4 or 5 months ago, and all of a sudden he is in a kind of a divorce dispute with a so-called best friend. So that gives you a certain perspective.
Okay.
I am saying that I'm also in a certain fix because the role I have played include the fact that I was the last Minister of Trade and Industry of the NDC government, and I had the responsibility of putting up the now well-known 12-story building called the Africa Trade House when I was Minister of Trade and Industry. The word industry often gets missed when you say Minister of Trade. And the industry part is really the most important part, at least from my perspective. Now we're talking about trade issues, but the trade without the industry really does not make much sense. That's why the extent to which we are a manufacturing nation, as you just said, 40% of our exports may be at the manufactured side, is critical. So how we respond to it, if that's not a question you're asking now, but which I'll come to later, it's important to understand the structure of our economy and our export-import regime. And I think most of us now know that Ghana imports about $17 billion per year and also exports about $17 billion. So for last year, I think our trade balance was only about 500 million in the negative side, which is not bad. It's really balanced in terms of our imports and exports. But of course, we would want to be an export-driven economy so that we actually would wish our exports can overtake our imports by 20-30%. That's going forward. Now, if we also, director level officer of the African Development Bank, but I was also a member of the team, 15 people who helped to create the African Export-Import Bank, which is based in Cairo.
AfriExim.
So the discussion actually, the AfriExim is a more relevant institution for this discussion than African Development Bank, which is more long-term funding, finance and development issues. So if African Export-Import Bank has not yet issued a statement on this, that's the one that will worry me most. By the end of the day, the issue is how should Ghana respond to these gyrations from the American side? And I think the advice of my good friend Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, who is now the Director General of the World Trade Organization, actually is I guess the most appropriate, that countries should relax and observe and monitor what is happening, because as I said, psychoanalysis, the man can start tomorrow and say, okay, all tariffs have been removed, but only Ghana will take 50% of Ghana. You can do that tomorrow, either by Twitter or by X or by whatever. And that's the policy for 5 minutes, or for 20 minutes, or 2 hours. And then the next week can be something else. So the situation is so unpredictable. The unpredictability of the policy framework of the United States is what I would like to refer to, but also to acknowledge that now that we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that's a regional trade-oriented institution, it's better for that organization to be the voice of Africa at this particular time than individual countries running around being scared about what they should do and not do, so that we take collective action through the AFCFTA, and also happen to be among the ambassadors then in the United States who signed the initial documents that led to the Africa Growth and Opportunities Act, AGOA. It was in the 1970s, 1990s, when that particular U.S. law came into existence. So I happen to have had those kinds of experiences, and I thought this is a time when collective knowledge from a number of institutions, a number of personalities, if put together properly on behalf of Africa, can help us all to navigate the choppy waters that are ahead of us. Finally, it is important to state that whatever the United States does is being done by one country. That one country does not control more than about 70% of global trade or global anything. It does contribute 20% or so to the United Nations, and sometimes near 20% to the other multilateral institutions, etc. But notice how the Bank of Canada, former Bank of Canada governor, who also was the Bank of England governor, and who is now Prime Minister of Canada, how he took on America without making any noise. Just attending to the bond markets and getting his European friends with some.
Dr. Ekos Biograbra, former Minister of Trade and Industry. You just heard him in that submission there earlier. You heard the head of trade and working capital at Absa Bank, Emmanuel Mensah. You also heard the African Center for Economic Transformation CEO, Mavis Owusu Jemfi. And earlier, you heard Confident Managing Partner, Michael Koto. They were speaking at this year's or to the 2025 edition of the Citi Business Forum that was held earlier today. It was under the theme, Global Tariff Dispute, Navigating Ghana's Recovery Strategy. This is where we end today's exciting edition of the Eyewitness News that came to you live from our studio here in Accra. My name is Sami Wiafe. Earlier, I was here with Ejubi Wiafe. The show produced by Beverly Landing, Juliana Odame, and Mano Ayama. Technical assistant Daniel Squashy. So we'll come your way again tomorrow. Good night.